I'm here at MWC 2024 held in Shanghai. There's lots to explore today, from robotic dogs to robotic arms to AI and new types of fans. So here, let me take you along for a ride.
This year's Expo was massive, spanning more than 5 halls, so we can't get to everything, but the first thing that you'd see when you enter is the telecom providers' booths. Telecom providers like China Telecom, ZTE, China Mobile all had some interesting booths showing how they're deploying new technologies into their existing infrastructure. So the more flashy ones are, for example, this China Telecom car that's connected to a satellite at all times, or interesting examples of how they've applied their technology to robotics, like, for example, this table game playing robot, or this robot that could be used in manufacturing that's able to switch out its head, so going from a grabber to a screwdriver. There was lots of queuing up to try out interesting demos, and I think one of the more crowded ones that I've seen was the Lenovo BCI Racetrack, where you can put on this brain control interface headband and be able to race a car through the track as fast as you can. And behind me is a BCI controlled race car, well, on a smaller scale obviously, but this is one of Lenovo's projects where they have brain computer interfaces, so they're able to detect what your thoughts are in a sense. And so it's limited, but as you can see, the car's moving. And once they remove it, it's not moving. So, but if you walk down just a little bit more, you'd find another huge queue for the barista robots. This one would serve you coffee and even print out your face on the surface of the mug, which is a little bit disconcerting. All right, behind me we also have a 6-legged dog, which is kind of upsetting. Yeah, it's been moving around. It's controlled by a controller, or it's also got its own smart control, so the LiDAR helps it navigate and figure out where it is. And it's able to go up the stairs and the little ledge that we have right here. Yeah, it's quite cute actually, so yeah, let me go and pet it. It's been really interesting seeing all the stuff that Lenovo has brought to the Shanghai MWC. Here's one thing we're all familiar with in Asia, especially as the summer comes along: fans. But the fans that I saw at the MWC don't look anything like a fan I've seen before. I just had to ask Floor Systems, how exactly is what they're developing a fan, and just how does it work? I'm here with Seishu from Floor, how do you pronounce it?
Floor Systems.
Floor Systems. We rely on fans for everything in electronics and in our daily lives. We have kind of a new way to think about fans. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure. We have produced the world's first solid-state active cooling chip. This completely replaces fans in all manner of devices. You know, fans are 100-year-old technology, and the fact that it's still the only way you can actually remove heat in these ultra-sophisticated computing devices is something that we shouldn't have to live with. So we decided to do something about it, so we created a chip that removes heat.
And so when you say a chip, you're using the same technologies that you use to fabricate processors to create this kind of...
We're using the same technology, but this is not a processor. You know, this cools the processor.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is, with generative AI, computing devices are being asked to do more and more. So now everything is getting smarter and requires even greater computation. And when it requires more computation, it also produces more heat. Yeah. And it's come to a point where fans are just not going to cut it. Because fans are voluminous, you know, they're bulky, they're noisy. And so in this show, we actually launched the IP68 compliant version of AirJet Mini. This is our product.
Okay.
So we have we call it the AirJet Mini Sport. So we are launching it at the MWC Shanghai. The two applications are smartphones, which are already IP68.
Yeah.
So adding AirJet Mini Sport to a smartphone can improve the performance of the smartphone up to 80% without changing the form factor or giving up on IP68 compliance. Another application that we're seeing a lot of interest is action cameras. Action cameras are super compact, and you want them to work, you know, when you're skiing, when you're scuba diving, when you're snorkeling, when you're surfing, and so it has to be very rugged.
Or if you're like in the bright sun at 35 degrees temperature.
That's correct.
That's when you need cooling.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting.
And right now, you know, because they're very compact, they're passively cool. But what's happening in action cameras, much like in smartphones, is AI is bringing more and more computing to these devices, to the point where you can no longer remove all the heat that they're generating within the small form factor. So you have to add active cooling. And Airjet Mini Sport is a perfect answer to that problem.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you heard about 4G before, and you probably have 5G right now, but have you heard about 6G? No? Well, that's normal because it doesn't exist yet. That hasn't stopped the chip manufacturer AMD from having a go at creating 6G.
I'm here in the AMD booth with Gilles, who's here to tell me a little bit about how AMD is involved with networking. First and foremost, 6G, we're just finishing up rolling out 5G. Is 6G official? Is it announced? Or
so, as a technology provider, we always need to be 5 years ahead of the market. So 6G will probably starting deploying by 2029, 2030, but we need to start working now because our customers, the wireless and vendors, are already starting to look at what they will do with it. And so what we want to show them is that we have already the technology today that will allow them to do all their POC early ramp up and deployment with the 6G when they will need it.
Okay.
So that's why we are showing that today.
Yeah, because right now 5G is already kind of the cutting edge.
Yep.
What are you doing so that 6G will have even more advantage? Like what's the new technology here?
So 6G will be AI based, that we call AI native. Two value propositions for 6G. One is all the network management that will be much more efficient, managing better spectrum, managing the power, managing the efficiency of the radios, managing the user mobility, having a better user experience. Everything will be AI driven. So that's one. Two, we'll have a higher capacity.
Or one of the issues with mobile networks and telecommunications in general is latency. Like if you're on a phone, it's a little bit slower than if you're plugging it into a laptop or have this direct link. So give me kind of a scale of like how much latency we were talking about before and how much we're talking about with this new technology.
So already in 5G and 5G Advanced, we are talking about very low latency. When we are moving to 6G and when we are moving to this optimization with AI, we are talking about an order of magnitude difference, so which is quite impressive. And so meaning that we are able to optimize the latency, so that means that for gamers or gaming, for video streaming, suddenly you will have the real user experience that people have been promising for the past at least 5 years. So we are saying the technology is mature. Now the applications need to be developed to take advantage of this technology.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to
Alfred,
talk.
thank you.
All right, and that's a wrap for this year's Mobile World Congress held in Shanghai in 2024. It was really interesting for us to go there. We learned a lot about networking and about mobile networks. There were some really interesting demonstrations from China Unicom, China Mobile, Lenovo, showcasing what can be possible with these new technologies that they're developing. Unfortunately, I think that's my flight that's about to take off. If you're interested in any more coverage from the Mobile World Congress, we've got some new interviews coming up in the couple of days to come. And until then, I've got to run catch my flight. Take care.